Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, episode 357. We're presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And we're presented by Game Time. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Also presented by CLNS Media. Make sure to go subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Lots of great content over there. Podcasts all the time, live streams, interviews, scrums, analysis, all that great stuff that you can only get at Bruins Rinkside. And if you don't like looking at us and you just want to listen, just want to give it a little listen as you're driving in the car, which if you're in the car, don't look at us.
Please don't.
Look at the road. Please look at the road. I highly recommend
on the wheel.
looking at the road. Yes, 10 and 2. Please go do that. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. And there's lots of other great stuff at CLNS. If you're a big Patriots fan, there's Patriots Press Pass. You like the Celtics All Access. They have stuff going all the time. I'm Evan Marinofski. It's Conor Ryan. Connor, what's up?
Evan, doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. It's nice that hockey obviously is back. And in Bruins beat, we covered some of what was said this week. So highly recommend going to listen to that. And then two-parter, basically a two-part Poke the Bear, Bruins beat. What is what's the difference?
This is like when those random shows, when those like CBS shows, they'd be on the same network. They'd like have like a crossover episode, right?
Yes.
It'd be like it'd be like CSI is like crossing over with like How I Met Your Mother. Or like I don't think those are the same networks, but I think it was what was the new one? Like Abbott Elementary had a crossover with Always Sunny, right?
I vaguely remember this. Yes, I liked it. I can attest more to kid shows. So when I was a kid, like your favorite Disney shows when they crossed over, or like around the holidays and they do shows together. I forget if Hannah Montana. But Hannah Montana was in like
there was that crossover.
Life.
It was like the crossover. It was Hannah Montana with like The Wire, right? Like they crossed that.
Yeah, that was a great episode. One of my favorites. Jimmy McNulty, man. I was like, Jimmy,
exactly. It's crazy.
Please stay away from Hannah Montana. Okay?
It's a kid's show, Jimmy.
Yeah, come on, Jimmy, please. Bunk, enough, okay? Please. Yes, that was a crazy crossover. Lost episode, I think. I don't think that they don't stream that on HBO anymore. It's just you had to be there to see that one. It's nice though. I mean, it's September now, and it's August is done. You've always been a big anti-August guy, and that it's overrated. And I will say,
see ya, peace out, bozo.
Not to go too off topic, but when I see like TikToks ranking months in different cities, August is never high.
No,
August gets ranked like February and January, and I'm kind of on that track. Like obviously, it's better than February and January, and even March, but like you start to get into springtime and obviously early summer and early fall and Christmas time. Like August is behind that, and so it's nice that August is done. We got through it. Now we're on to the fall.
Now we're
like
peaking.
Sports kick into gear. NBA and NHL training camps and NFL and college football.
It's a beautiful time, Evan.
It is a beautiful time. David Pastrnak spoke to the media this week. He is back. Long interview after Tuesday's captain's practice. And what's interesting that's been talked about is obviously Pastrnak is healthy, which is a good thing for the Bruins, but leadership was something that came up quite a bit. And McAvoy mentioned in his scrum about how it's leadership by committee, and he says it'll be that way the whole year. And I don't think he fully meant like they will never name a captain, but it is an interesting thing with Pastrnak and McAvoy, who gets it, who's, I think at the end of the last season, it was like, it feels like it should be Pastrnak, the way that he handled himself through the end of the, what was a tumultuous season. And it will be interesting to see how they face the media after tough games and how they lead, how they conduct themselves, how guys follow their lead. And I think with Pastrnak, I think he said all the right things on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think like that's kind of been the trend with Pastrnak over the last year, especially of just like doing the things that need to be done as like kind of the vocal leader, right? And the guy that, listen, all these guys, you look at Patrice Bergeron, who is always accountable talking to the media. Not fun when you get your ass kicked in a game to then have to ask the questions are going to get asked in the scrum, questions you've heard a whole bunch of times. It's not great. It's not fun.
What happened out there? What'd you see on that?
Exactly. So it's not fun, but you got to do it, even if it means just giving the diplomatic responses, the stuff you want to hear, the stuff that as a leader you have to express to the media. And David Pastrnak did that for a lot of games in which the Bruins, sure enough, were getting their ass kicked pretty repeatedly down the stretch there. But I mean, I thought it was impressive how he kind of handled a year where everything went to hell, right? You don't even have another another key leader in Charlie McAvoy out there with you, which makes it that much tougher. But to Pastrnak to one, play at the level he did, and also just assume that role, right? And probably quicker than most people expected, right? I think regardless of what you thought was going to happen long term with the Bruins, and I think people could say that it was inevitable that this team was going to eventually, the bottom was going to fall at some point. They were going to have a rough year. That's something people expected to one kind of come out of nowhere and also lead to like Brad Marchand playing down in Florida, right? Like a lot in terms of like just the overall hierarchy and leadership structure of the team was just dissolved. And so for Pastrnak to do what he did last year and then going to this year, again, saying all the right things. He's not saying like, put the C on me. It's literally one of those. It's him talking about even back when it was Bergeron and Chara and those guys. It wasn't just everyone turned to those two players for guidance like that. Those are your de facto guys, but it was by committee. There's a lot of guys who stepped in as leaders across that time period. I think that's kind of how the Bruins are viewing it. Like, if you would ask me right now, I'm not sure if they're going to open the year with the captain. I don't think they need to like declare and have one guy as the captain before this year starts. Maybe it is something that is, an ongoing trial to see which one of those guys can step up. Because I think eventually you need a captain. I think if you go like years where there's two or three guys that are obviously the guys you turn to, but not one unquestioned kind of like de facto head there, it can get not dicey, but you just want some of that structure in place, right? But I don't think they have to do that before the regular season starts. But I think it's going to be an ongoing process. And the fact you have both Pastrnak and McAvoy saying all the right things right now about having it be an ongoing situation, something that they want to build up this culture, adapt the culture to what is going to be a group that obviously is going to be a lot younger with a lot of new faces in there. It's what you want to hear, right? We're not making any sweeping conclusions off of who's going to be the captain or who's best fit for it or what their leadership qualities are going to be moving forward. But they're all saying the things you want to hear, which is kind of what a captain has to do.
Oh, 100%. And I think the other part of it is like, not just who's going to be captain, right? Is it Pastrnak? Is it McAvoy? I don't see it being someone else. I think, those guys were dealt. Carlo, Coyle, obviously Marchand was the captain, but those guys were dealt last deadline. Who's the next crop? Who are the other leaders? Because again, like this team, what a crop. This team had, that secondary group of leaders. You had your captains, you had your guys wearing the A. Who's that next tier? And I think they need to figure out what that's going to be this season. And obviously different players are going to emerge. Nikita Zadorov to me is an obvious one. I think he is certainly one. What's Elias Lindholm? Any of the younger guys on this roster step up? You now have veterans in that bottom six, like a Janot, like a Corrali, like an Asimon.
Even Geeky. I think Geeky is a guy that, like, beyond like his breakout on the ice, I think you could see just over the course of the year him being more vocal, more speaking to the media after games, good and bad, right? Of like preaching what the team needs to do, what they fell short in doing in that particular game, and harping on the positives in a year where there weren't a whole lot of positives to focus on. But as a leader, as a guy that wants to be part of the solution for this team to get them back towards being a sustainable contender, you have to take that approach of focus on the positives little by little whenever they're afforded to you. So I think that's like another guy that is going to be part of that next wave. And as much as you said, like there is the questions over who's going to be the captain, I think you're already seeing gradually kind of that second tier, kind of like what the Krugs and the Coyles and those types of players were, the Carlos over the last couple of years. You're seeing that next kind of wave beyond Pastrnak and McAvoy also, I think, start to establish themselves. And that's what you have to do to have a winning culture here in Boston.
And I do think there is a lot to be said. Pastrnak was big with this last year of speaking to media after bad losses, after blowout losses. That's a part of the gig. It's a hard part of the gig. I mean, think of anyone. You have a bad day at work. right? You work in sales. You didn't meet your goals that day. You're a plumber, whatever it might be. You're a lawyer. You have a bad day, and you've got 5 minutes later.
It's a really shitty day as a plumber.
Bad day. It didn't work out. I don't know. The toilet
exploded. Yeah, exactly.
Toilet exploded.
You get there and there's no toilet.
That's right. That's right. The toilet's gone. There's nothing to fix. 5 minutes later, you've got 20 people and 5 cameras in your face going, "What went wrong?" And you're like, the toilet wasn't there. What do you want me to do? No excuses. It's like, take it day by day.
It's pretty cut and dry, actually.
Dumps in deep.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You can do that. It's hard. And it is a leadership quality to be out there in the public, getting broken down, having us, not just us, but having everyone break down what you're saying after a loss when you are pissed. And so I think that says a lot about Pastrnak last year and what he was able to do. Not just that, but also leading by example. And it's interesting to hear him. Like, this might make people feel old. He's going into year 12.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Year 12. And when he was saying, "Oh, I used to run. Now I'm older. I can't, do that as much." It's like, holy crap.
Same, brother.
Like, you think of Pastrnak as sort of this happy-go-lucky young guy, and that's not the case anymore. And that's sort of my big thing with like seeing guys like McAvoy and Swayman come out there. Is like, it wasn't that long ago. They were kids. They were the rookies on the team, and now they are leaders. And by the way, it makes sense. They're, how old's Pastrnak? Is he 29?
28? Going on 29?
McAvoy
he might be 29.
Yeah. So they're near 30.
Yeah.
And they're not kids anymore, but time flies. It's just the seasons blend together, and it absolutely blows me away. You know what else blows me away?
What's that, Evan?
Prize Picks blows me away because this episode's brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I, we make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Patriots are this Sunday. I'll give you 2 that I like. Drake May, 218.5 yards. I'm going more. And then there's a great one. DeMario Douglas, 0.5 rushing or receiving touchdowns. I like it. I'm going in with the Patriots having a big week offensively, so I like those. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. And Prize Picks, they invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And one worry is what happens with injuries. Well, Prize Picks, they thought of that because Prize Picks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and does not return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. This has happened to me. Prize Picks is good for their word on this, as they are for everything. But this is, I can guarantee, I know this. I have experienced this. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. It's good to be right.
Can confirm.
At Prize Picks, it's nice to be right. It's nice to be right. Some young guys spoke to the media this week. Fabian Lysell was one of them. Lysell talked about his summer, focusing on speed, says he's feeling good. Everybody's going to say they feel good at the beginning of camp like this.
I did just opening camp and just be like, yeah, my back feels like shit.
I feel horrible. I have never felt worse. I'd respect someone who came out and was like, yeah, I don't think it's going to be my year. I don't think this is it. It doesn't feel like it. Well, who is it?
I got to my apartment in Boston and the toilet was missing. The plumber had no answer. He didn't even speak to the media.
This plumber, there was a second toilet that had vanished that day.
Yeah.
Was it, I don't know if you can hear, there's a dog just going nuts in the backyard.
He wants to share his opinion too. He's saying that he's not feeling great. He's not ready for a new year to start.
This ain't his year. He's saying that this is not his year. It's funny. Speaking of that, there was a great Chiclet story. I forget who it was. They roomed with Phil Kessel when he played in Pittsburgh, and they were like, he would wake up in the morning and be like, "Not feeling it today. I feel like shit. This is awful. I don't feel good." And then it scored 2 goals that night, being like, "I felt like shit out there." It's a YouTube clip, so it's great. Anywho, Fabian Lysell, is this his year? Can he make this lineup? What are you thinking?
It's going to be interesting to see just kind of what he can, do with the opportunity in front of him, right? Again, the Bruins have added more depth at that middle six spot. So as much as, he, I think, really impressed down the stretch with the Bruins, right? Like he played 13 games and pretty quiet the first 7, 8, 9, but then I think was really kind of playing to his strengths over those final games. I think he had that great play on the Bruins' final game of the season where kind of recovers the puck, brings it around the net, and then feeds, I think it was Husendinov for a goal. And it's like that was all manufactured off of just his skating ability. And when you look at how skill deficient this team probably is, right, in terms of like you can see where a guy like Lysell, if he does pop, how much value he could bring. There's a lot to like about what he could do. It's just, is he going to leapfrog all these guys in the lineup? It feels like we had the same discussion last year where I think almost it felt like there was a better opportunity where there was more, I think, runway for him to seize a spot during training camp, the preseason. And he was not good last year during the training camp preseason. Didn't really stand out and like wasn't even like one of like the final cuts, right? Like really did not have a good showing there. And so it's all about, I think, as you're getting to this point where Lysell is 22 years old, like still a young player, but you have this kind of next wave of, you still have this next wave of prospects. Yeah. The unction. You have this group now with guys like him, and you have Fraser Minton and even like Matt Poitras, but also like the guys further down the pipeline that are all rising through the ranks as well, that you kind of have to figure out at this point what you have in a guy like Lysell. And, it's in such a interesting spot for him because the talent is there. You just wish it was more consistent. If he can show signs of being a consistent player, then there should be a spot for him in this team. It's just he has to prove it. And it's kind of like you look at what he did last year, ends the year on a high note in the NHL and goes back to Providence and really doesn't do that much when you're like, all right, if he's playing like that in the NHL, he's going to light it up in the playoffs in the AHL. Wasn't the case. So it's all about just finding that more consistent game, I think, with a guy like Lysell, because they can use a player with his skill set. It's just, you need to see it. You need to see it in NHL action.
One thing that works in his favor is there's not a lot of guys in the current, with Boston or in the system who have his skill set, who possess the offensive ceiling. Not that he always hits it, but that offensive ability that he has, the skill, shot, the vision, all those different things, right? But then there's the part that doesn't work in his favor is that I think I think most people project, Sturm's comments to you especially project, this is going to be a defensive team. This is going to be a lock it in, tight team, mistake-free hockey, low-scoring type team, forecheck the hell out of the other team type team. That doesn't really suit him. That's not him. And there's a case that he can slot in and be what they don't have and help in on that second power play unit and be a guy in the bottom six who brings a little offensive pizzazz. But there's also that part that's like, if there are defensive inefficiencies, is Sturm going to want to put that in the lineup? And that's what I keep going back to with him. And that's what's so hard to tell with him is like, what is that? And this is something we've talked about the last couple of training camps of, can he make the team? Can he make the team? That's sort of the double-edged sword that faces him, I think, going into this camp is what's Sturm looking for, and can Lysell deliver it?
Yeah. And it's something too, where I think some of that falls on the player, obviously, right? Like Lysell has to have a good camp. He has to have a good preseason. He did not do it last year, and that's where he was kind of stuck in limbo, right? So of course it falls on him, but also I think you have to have some leeway if you're the Bruins that, to your point, like I think they want to play that really structured system. That's how they've traditionally been, right? That's been like a hallmark of their identity and how they want to play. But if you have a very skilled player, you should also, I think, have some leeway to have them play to their strengths, right? It's almost like a guy we've talked about who we haven't seen in the Bruins Twitter yet is Matej Blumel. You like what he did in the AHL. Is he coming in here with the profile of a great two-way guy, responsible player? No, we look at him, and I think the Bruins took a chance on him because he scored, 30-plus goals in the AHL. And you could use a guy like that in the NHL level. So if you're Marco Sturm and you're intrigued by what a guy like him or Alex Steeves can do with the more reps available, and you want them to play to their strengths, because maybe, just maybe, you can get a 15 to 20 goal guy out of that type of player, then also maybe you give some of that leeway to a guy like Lysell as well. So I'm not saying that you just are A-okay with him not back checking and playing with reckless abandon out there. No, you don't want that. But I also think if you're the Bruins and you are just trying to find some sort of secondary scoring help, right? Like it's what we said before of like, I don't think the Bruins are going to come out of this season with their whole lineup figured out for the next 5+ years of like, oh, we got Haggs, so we're all set. The rest of the guys fall into place. But if one of those Blumels or Steves or Lysells can show enough that makes you think like, all right, we've got like our third line set, or at least 2/3 of it of like, let's say Minton and one of those players next year. You feel good about where the pieces are starting to fall into place as you continue to kind of augment and change your roster. So, but you also probably don't get that clarity, and you're definitely not getting the production if you're also not letting them have some leeway with how they approach the game. So I think that has to be important for the Bruins. Mostly falls on the player, but they have to also give them some freedom to play to their strengths as well.
Yeah, and I think going forward, you need a couple of Minton, Poitras, Lysell, Steves, Blumel to hit.
For sure.
You need that. And you see that around the league, guys who might not be known as well as much, kind of diamonds in the rough, or like in Minton, Poitras, and Lysell's case, kind of high-end prospects, so to speak, or at least, drafted like it. You need them to hit. You need them to hit. You need those guys to contend. They're on cheap money. So if you can get a lot of production out of them, that goes a long way in terms of success. Speaking of cheap money, in terms of success, you know who's back, Connor?
Who's that?
Connor? Game Time. Game Time is fully back, and they couldn't have come back at a better time. College football season is also back, and it's one of the most fun times of the year. Tailgates, hyped up crowds, incredible finishes. The downside, though, can often be the process of getting tickets, queues, annoying login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. The Game Time app, though, they give the advantage back to the fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and at the best price. Plus, I love this, fees are always included. So what you see is what you pay. It's also the start of the NFL season, and you can go to the Patriots opening game against the Raiders on Sunday. As of right now, there's a deal for $148 tickets. And if you want, Game Time will pick the best possible deal for you with Game Time picks as they decide which seats are the best value. Following weekend, Red Sox host the Yankees. Pretty big series, and you can get in Friday's game for as low as $164, and that's a week out. Sunday, which is Sunday Night Baseball, I believe is even less right now on Game Time. So go take advantage of that now. Game Time has deals in the lead up to the actual game time as well. Best part, again, fees are included at the end. So take the guesswork out of buying college football or any sport tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Yeah. Just
like
knock
the kid.
my...
I'm like the kid in Finding Nemo. He keeps on like hitting the glass.
Hitting the glass. The fish are like, ah.
Yeah.
It's like when you tap, the little kids are tapping at the pet store, the fish tanks and stuff.
Exactly.
Like,
just terrifying the guinea pigs.
Oh.
Gotta stop.
Also, though, when the Bruins preseason starts up, go through Game Time. Through Game Time. Great deals. And again, last minute too. Like the last minute tickets, if you live nearby, or said this on Bruins Beat, kids are like, Mommy, can we please go to the Patriots tomorrow? Or can we go to the Red Sox tonight? You can't say no.
No.
Can't say no. And you're gonna think, Evan and Connor, they mentioned Game Time. So boom, hooked it up. You're welcome. Matt Poitras, another young player, he spoke to the media this week. I'm curious what you took away from that, because I spoke about Lysell saying that, what Lysell has as the offensive skill, what he doesn't have is sort of what the Bruins are probably going to play as this year. Poitras kind of has the best of both worlds. Skilled, nice vision, can play a good two-way game. I think if you were to, place a bet on who you think makes the lineup, I would probably put Poitras over Lysell right now. But I'm curious sort of what you took away from what Poitras said this week and where you think he fits in the pecking order.
Yeah, he's a guy that you like the skill. You like just the fact that it feels like he's accelerated his timeline from maybe where it was a few years ago, right? Where you liked what he was doing in junior hockey. Then all of a sudden he's playing NHL hockey and was playing at a pretty high level back before he got hurt, right? Like I think that's the encouraging thing with him is that we've seen that level of production. Even before he got hurt in the 23-24 season, he was on pace for a while when you're in like the middle of November, getting close to Thanksgiving, where he was looking at like a 40-point season as an 18-year-old. You're like, oh, you actually do have something here. And a lot of that, it's not off of, you don't get to that point with just luck or a lot of just like, crazy shooting luck or something. It was a lot of it was playmaking, the poise that he has with the puck. Like those are things that he already has. And he's ideally going to get better at that as he continues to put on more weight, put on more muscle, and kind of know what he has to do to avoid injury, right? That's kind of the big knock with him is that if he stays healthy, he can be the productive player. It just keeps on getting injured. He keeps on running to these situations where he's putting himself in a bad spot, and it kind of just derails that progress. So I'm curious to see just how he feels going into this year, because it feels like even though he had the surgery after his rookie season and said he was good going into the year, it just feels like maybe last year was kind of just playing catch up for most of the year, right? Couldn't get into a groove, was still banged up, didn't have the start that he wanted to. We went down to Providence and was productive there. I think we see the skill and we see that he can be a really impactful player in Providence. And we've seen him do it in spurts at the NHL level. It's all about just putting it all together and staying healthy. And then from there, we've mentioned it before on this podcast that like Poitras, you've got guys like Minton, you got other players that maybe fit more into like, let's say a third line center role. But if Poitras attacks this preseason, this training camp, and puts on a show like he did 2 years ago, he's going to play. Like I think Marco Sturm has said, like they want younger guys to make an impact in the lineup, but it's also going to fall on them to leapfrog a lot of established talent. And if Poitras has a strong preseason, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the mix. And that's good news for the Bruins. We've said this before as well. Like they have a great young center in the pipeline in Haggs, who's going to be the 2C. And if Poitras can take a big step forward, that is great news. And it's kind of almost like an underrated X factor as to what this team needs, right? If Poitras does pop and he ends up being what we thought he was 2 years ago, changes kind of the complexion of both this season and also what you're expecting in the years ahead.
And it's funny, like we just talked about Lysell, and Lysell the last couple of years has not had great training camps and has kind of fallen short at the beginning of the year, and it's kind of put him behind the 8 ball. Poitras has been the exact opposite. Poitras had very good camps, especially 2 years ago when he made the team seemingly out of nowhere. And, I agree with you in that I think he could earn a spot. I think the organization likes him a lot. I think the way he plays, the style that he brings, they want to see it. I mean, he went down to Providence last year, played a lot of games, played well. And I think they look at it like, all right, he's done things the right way. And it wouldn't shock me if he's in the opening night lineup. He even said on Thursday, I think it was earlier today, we're recording on Thursday. So yesterday when you're listening, that he's open to playing the wing too, playing anywhere where there's a spot. And I think his skill set works with it. It just comes down to like, he makes a lot of sense on the third line. Can you have a third line with him and Minton on it? 2 almost rookies. I mean, Poitras, played in 2 seasons, but like, you know what I mean? 2 young guys like that. I guess if you put on the left side, maybe you can do that. And the other thing is like, if you put Poitras on the wing, does that take him out of being a center later in his career when other spots open up? I think that's probably a hesitation that they have is like, we like him better at center, makes a little more sense center, clearly more comfortable at center. Do you want to, are they pigeonholing him at wing if they ultimately decide to put him in the opening night lineup as a right wing?
Yeah. So it's curious to see just what they end up carving out for him, because you made the case that for them, it's just getting him in the lineup. And maybe the easiest way to do that is playing at the wing and simplifying his game. But which feels like his ceiling is higher if you keep him down the middle. But it would be a great problem to have if you're the Bruins if both Minton and Poitras are playing at a high level this fall, because it means that you got to carve out spots for 2 really young players that, to what we said earlier about, like, if you're able to end this year with identifying 1 or 2 or hopefully 3 forwards who look like they're going to be part of this equation moving forward, like, you'll take that if 2 of those guys are especially younger talents like a Minton and a Poitras, which you like a lot about what they've shown so far. It's all about just being consistent with it. So Poitras is a fascinating example of just a guy that we've seen the talent, we've seen the production even, just kind of putting it all together and having a clean slate. Because it just does feel like last year was like a write-off year, right? Where it just feels like he was still playing catch-up, still wasn't really fully healthy, and it kind of just set him back the entire season.
Completely. Fun reminder, make sure to go subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Poke the Bear, Pucks with Haggs, Bruins Beat all throughout the season, all the off season, 6 a week total. Live streams, interviews, analysis, scrums, all that stuff. And if you don't like looking at us, or you're driving and you can't,
Please
you can
don't.
always, please don't do that. Make sure to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts from. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, wherever. And then also make sure to go check out CLNS's other great content. If you're a big Pats fan, you want to check out analysis from Sunday's game. Patriots Press Pass is your place to go. Celtics All Access, another great place to go for after Celtics games or anytime. Garden Report, though, they cook. Holy God. Like every episode, the chat is just like going. And they're fun. They're funny. I'm in a fantasy football league with them. So their banter's fun, even off camera, which is great too. I'm going to throw something at you, Connor. I don't know if you saw this today.
What's that?
I'm springing something that isn't in our agenda. Cause we script every episode scripted. There's not a
Entire
word that
thing. I got a little
Yep.
teleprompter going off right here too. So it's a big thumbs down because you're just throwing something at me I wasn't prepared for.
I put it in there as you were talking.
Yeah, it's a big,
mine's memory.
It's a big middle finger emoji.
Yeah, you're welcome. How about that? That's what you get for catching me running out of the IHOP as you tweet it. Corey Pronman put out a story. Which rebuilding NHL teams are closest to contending for the Stanley Cup? Number 1 was the San Jose Sharks. 2 was the Mammoth. Bruins, I was like, are they going to consider them rebuilding? The final team at 16. They ranked 16th. Bruins are 16th in this exercise with some caveats. I'm speaking as Corey Pronman, who wrote this. I don't think their NHL team is poor. They should improve next season with better health. And although that Jeremy Swayman contract seems ugly today, he should be better than he was last year. But outside of James Haggs, there isn't much coming prospect-wise to be excited about. Haggs, McAvoy, and Pastrnak can only do so much. And while I can see Boston making the playoffs soon, contending for a title seems a long way off. That's tough to hear. Pronman is not stupid. He's a national guy, has a national perspective. We've talked about his prospect rankings and everything many times. You can disagree with them, but he has the full perspective. He sees the full game board. I don't think he's way off. In terms of like being a cup contender, like I agree. I don't think that they're that close. In terms of being a playoff team, like I don't know, a year or two. Like I don't think that's insane. I think a year even, you could say, like Haggs' first year. They've got to hit on these picks in these next couple of years to be a true cup contender again. But I'd also say like Stanley Cup contender is subjective. It's weird. You can get in as a wild card team and go nuts and do damage and catch lightning in a bottle. That's expecting a lot out of this team. But I don't fully disagree with him saying that, out of the teams that picked high last year, they are maybe the furthest away from contending.
Yeah, I think it all depends on just what the Bruins do with this assortment of picks they have. And again, like you never know of which of like a player, let's say Will Zellers or someone else like that. Because I think we mentioned when Prodman, and again, Corey does a great job with an insane amount of coverage, right? Like there's so many prospects he has to keep tabs on. But, we were saying that if it's a guy like Will Zellers has a great year in North Dakota, does that change things, right? Like the Bruins they'd love it, but they don't think they're expecting 8 or 9 of these guys to like all hit and be playing in the NHL in the next couple of years. But if let's say a guy like Zellers or a guy like Simpson or someone like that hits and ends up being a viable NHL talent, well, that changes the whole complexion of just what your lineup is. There's only so many guys you can put in your lineup. So it's kind of what we said about like if one of Blumel or Steves or Lysell hit, right? That solves a lot of your problems. The Bruins think they have a big hurdle cleared by just having James Haggs in their pipeline. I'm just adding that type of player. So I think for them, where you have all these picks coming up, and it depends on where they finish this year. If they got another top 10 pick, they're getting a pretty damn good prospect in this pool. But if it's something that's more of like a 15th pick plus, I don't know, let's say like Toronto's like 22nd overall. If you get 15 to 22, you can either package that and move up, or you have a chance to add still a really, I think, talented player in this draft. The same thing with 2027. Like they have a full cupboard of draft picks for the first time in what feels like forever, right? They've got all their second rounders. They got all these first rounders. They got multiple picks, and it gives you the option that whether you want to stay the course and identify those draft picks and add more guys to the system, or what we said last week of like guys like Rasmus Anderson or Marty Natchez or guys like that, you can also accelerate that way as well. Like the Bruins at least have, to what Corey said, a foundation of elite talent right now between Pastrnak, McAvoy, and you hope Swayman. It's all about how do you build off of that. You have Haggs, but it's all about what you do from there. And you could stay the course if you want to, but maybe the Bruins try to toe the line or do the best of both worlds there of, not to throw it back to Hannah Montana, of, being aggressive in the draft while also being selective of when to kind of put all the chips on the table, if it means acquiring maybe a win now asset moving forward.
Yeah, and I think people who read that story might be like, the Sharks are closer to a Stanley Cup than the Bruins? What on what planet? But I think what Corey's trying to say is like, the Sharks are drafting high-end talent, and when they all hit, good Lord, like that's going to be a really good team. Bruins have your high-end talent, and in terms of McAvoy, Pastrnak, I don't think he believes much in Swayman, but like Swayman, I would add completely in that category. It's what's supplementing that. Who are you drafting in the next couple of years to become like a Stanley Cup contender again? You can be a playoff team, but what are you going to be a Stanley Cup contender? I think that's probably one of the biggest questions facing them in the next couple of years. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read all my stuff over at the Globe and Boston.com. We have covered every step of the way this Bruins season, starting off with training camp. We're going to have a look at roster battles, lineup battles, all that good stuff. So please read my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That is Poke the Bear. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofski. You Poke the Bear listeners, have a great rest of your week.